Welcome to Real Estate Game Changers Radio, featuring real estate trendsetters and industry influencers, sharing tips and strategies to help home buyers and home sellers get the most out of their next real estate transaction. Now, here's your host, Suzanne Doyle-Ingram.
This is Suzanne Doyle-Ingram with Real Estate Game Changers Radio, and I have a fantastic guest today. His name is Roger Morris. He's in Seattle, Washington. Welcome to the show, Roger.
Hey, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome. I know you're very busy, so I'm really glad that we're able to pin you down to a certain amount of time today. So what I'd like to do is start out with, there's so much I want to talk about with you, but the first thing I want to ask you is, what do you love about your career in real estate?
Well, there's a lot of stuff I like about it. I love that I get to work with a variety of people. In my past jobs, I've kind of worked with the same kind of audiences, so I like the diversity that I get in my work situation. I love also that every single day is different. No 2 days are alike in this industry. And I love that I kind of control my own destiny, both the good and the bad that comes with it, but I kind of create my own future. I also love that I get to help people with making very big decisions in their lives. And finally, I think the best part is that I love knowing that the buyers that move into homes that I sell them, it's where they're going to raise their children, have holidays, make life changes, and that intrinsic value to me is really important.
Oh, that's so well said. That's beautiful. I imagine that you become friends with your clients.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's hard because you spend so much time with them and then it's over and you want to stay friends, but, their life moves on, your life moves on, and you can't be friends with everyone. But I do try to do some things where I see people. I have an annual client appreciation party and stuff like that. So I try to see people. And of course, some people become better friends that, you do socialize with perhaps more often.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Yeah, because I just from speaking with you before this interview, I know that your heart is in it, and you just love sort of like being a matchmaker and finding exactly the right home for people, and I think that's really wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. I've said that word before, that I'm a matchmaker. That makes me feel like I'm really doing good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about the city that you work in, Seattle, and if someone's listening from another part of the country, what's great about Seattle? People think, it rains all the time, but there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, it's a very exciting place. We're the hottest growing market right now in the country, and we have been for a while. Our employment situation is extremely strong, in part because of Amazon, and they're in the process of looking for a second headquarters, as many people probably know, somewhere in the country. But they have caused great growth here. Many people feel that might have raised our prices, though, as well. But what I like about it is that, first of all, it's beautiful, and it's got because it rains, it makes everything green. So you're surrounded by water on both sides, with both Puget Sound and Lake Washington, and you also have the Olympic Mountains and the Cascade Mountain Range on the other side. So on a clear day, you really don't want people to be here, because then everyone would want to live here, because it's pretty much perfect. I also really like that, almost to a fault, the city is extremely liberal and progressive. It's a good match for me. I think I sometimes live in a box because I forget that the rest of the world and the country might not be as progressive as Seattle is, but I really like that part. And like most cities, we are a city of neighborhoods, and I love that as a realtor, I get to know those, because a lot of times when you live in a place, you kind of just know your own little hood, and I get to enlighten people to, I just had somebody buy in a neighborhood that they'd never ever heard of. I said, you might want to consider, such and such, and it completely opened up another door that they had not even thought of that I got to tell them about.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that just shows how you're, an educator for your clients as well. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, education. Yeah. That's a good connection for me.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Exactly what I am.
I was just thinking about that. Tell me about your prior work before starting a career in real estate.
Well, that's where education all ties in, because I do have a master's degree in It was called higher ed administration, and I worked mostly in the student affairs perspective of higher ed. So I did have the luxury of being able to teach, but most of my stuff was working with students outside the classroom, and I did that for 15 years, both at a small school in New England outside of Boston, and then for 10 years at University of Oregon. And then after that, when I wanted to see if my skills were transferable into the private sector, I worked 3.5, almost 4 years as the corporate trainer for the Portland Trailblazers and the Oregon Arena Corporation in Portland, Oregon. So that was also doing a lot of educational stuff. It was a very fun job.
Well, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that a lot of people I interview, they say their previous careers were in sales, and that's where they like selling real estate. But for you, it's neat that your past experience involves education, because I can see how you are, really good at educating your clients, and that really, you don't really have to sell when you're able to do that.
Yeah. And even when I worked for the Blazers, my office space would be close to the people in sales who would be like getting corporate sponsorships for the team, and I'm thinking, I could do this. I mean, this isn't, it's a lot of it is personality. So luckily in some of my jobs, I have had some marketing components to it, but I do agree, totally. I think my educational background really does give me a different perspective and I know I approach it in a very different way, and I tell that to folks when I start to work with them about the fact that I do, I don't want to use acronyms, and I want to make sure they understand each step of the process and what's going on, and not to use a lot of lingo they don't know. So that is all important to me as I get through this work.
Yeah, and being patient, and I think your the word, maybe the vibe that I get from you is that people don't have to feel stupid asking you questions. They know that you'll be patient and explain the answers to them.
Yes, and very strongly I stress that when I'm working with folks, that please ask me, I want you to know what's going on. And you can read their faces too if you're with them and you say something. I go, you didn't understand that, right? So then I try it another way to make sure they do understand what's going on, or whatever decision we might be making that they need to get a better hold of.
Mm-hmm. So in that regard, do you enjoy working with first home buyers who are totally new to the whole thing?
I do. It's one of the audiences that I really like a lot. In fact, and I always tell them that, for 15 years, I did my primary function in higher ed was new student programs. So I would be orienting freshmen, and I had parent programs where they were coming to the university. And I said, now I'm just, kind of orienting you to the home buying process instead of, to a college or university setting. So I do approach this, and that's kind of a lead-in that I say with almost every client when I start to work with them.
Oh, that's great. Good idea. Perfect. Can you give me an example of someone that you've helped?
Lots of first-time buyers.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just...
Yeah, that's fine. Just worked with a couple, and ironically, he was a professor at the University of Washington, and we just went through, a very smooth process. He actually said at the end, between the lender and I, he goes, this was so much easier than I thought it was going to be, or I've heard that this was, and that's my goal, is I like it to be seamless, and, sometimes the retrospect of that is that people wonder what agents do to, earn their commissions. But my goal is to make it so easy that they go, wow, and they have no idea behind the scenes what's going on, to keep it all together, to move forward, the connections you're making with lending and escrow and the title company and the inspection and all the negotiation stuff that's going on to get it to close. So he was happy with that, and I had to show him, and then they had a very, like a 2-year-old child, so then I would drive back and then have to go show her what he had screened and liked. So, and it wasn't close by. It happened to be a slightly north, a town called Edmonds, slightly north of Seattle. And so there was a little bit of driving back and forth, but, I was whatever it takes to get them both to like it and see it and be on the same page. That's my approach.
Yeah, I think it's very good what you mentioned about, not letting the client see all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You just want them to know that you're taking care of everything. But, if they only knew some of the hoops you had to jump through.
Yeah, there is a document out there that shows all the things, and I think it's like 175 things that potentially could happen in a transaction. But one of the things I give folks is a graphic, because I'm a visual learner, so I give things out that are visual, and it's a really good graphic that kind of shows from the beginning and the end, and there's all these little arrows of what's happening with the title part and what's happening with the inspection and, the lending process and all these, components that they don't see or know, and how it all leads to, at the end, you being a new homeowner. And I think that really helps people see that there's a little more behind, this. I also am really about communication. So even where you get to a point where there's kind of a lull for the last couple of weeks leading up to a close, I'm letting them know, like, this is where we're at, this is what we're waiting on, this is, we still, once we get such and such from the appraisal, the lender will do this. And so I kind of keep in touch with them like every other day, at least at a minimum, so that they know that things are moving along and that all these behind-the-scene things are happening.
Yeah, that's great. I was absolutely going to ask you about that, about, how does that work with, keeping in direct communication with them, even if there's nothing to report. You still have to tell them, hey, there's nothing to report, but just want to let you know we're working on it or something like that.
Yeah, and every state has a different process. So, like, there's some federal guidelines now that require what's called a closing disclosure come out 3 days before that they have to sign to kind of make sure that it's apples to apples of the prices that they were quoted at the beginning from the lender to the end. And there's this and that we usually sign here a day or two because we're an escrow state. So, and you're going to get keys on this day, but you can't move until this day. And just because it says closing on November 10th doesn't mean that you can move on November 10th. You can't.
Yeah.
So it's all about. And so I'm not only writing that, and sometimes I'm reiterating things that maybe I already gave them, just because it's all new and they don't know between beginning to end that. Whatever, somebody even today said something about, well, when I close, I get my money that day, right? It's a selling, it's a listing. And I said, no, it's the next day. They've already signed. This has been explained to them at escrow that, your proceeds go out to you the following day. But I was again reiterating, I mean, and I'm the source, I'm the one they trust.
Yeah.
And the one that they're looking for, they assume what I'm telling them is the correct information. And I'm trying to make sure they don't get overloaded with, whatever's being thrown at them. So
yeah, and I think that's what happens sometimes is there's so much information that they just can't remember it all. And so one piece they might have been like, oh, what did he say about when we got our money? I think it's, they kind of make it up because they don't know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's you've got to keep, I think it's very important to give information to people more than once. And if they've already seen it, that's fine. They can say, oh yeah, I know that already, but, at least they have it again.
Yes. I'm a real systems guy, so I have checklists for everything. And one of the things when someone goes under contract, both as a buyer or a seller, is I extract all the dates of the contract and just put it in a simple letter format, send it to them in an email as a Word document, and just say, here's all the dates. And at the end, so I even have started to add, like, you'll sign a day or two prior, and then you close on such and such day, and then move in. I'll say any time after and reiterate, the day. So I'm just planting the seed wherever I can to make sure that the message is always consistent and that they are getting it and hopefully understanding it all. So, because it is a lot the first time, especially.
I think that's great that you have systems, because I think that you probably sometimes come up against other realtors that, obviously not to name names or anything, but you can tell that they don't seem to follow any systems. It's like, so you have to be the one that's sort of picking up the pieces if there's, lack of communication or their clients don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily, all my jobs have always had a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and I'm very, very organized. So in that regard, real estate for me was a very good match, because there are 1,000 things going on at one time, but there are a lot of agents, even folks in my office, who are just kind of overwhelmed by how do I keep track of that. So one of the return back to the industry things I do is to offer, every once in a while within my office, a kind of systems, how to do, what to do on a listing, all your checklist items, and I share my list with them. I'm like, there's no reason when you're new that you need to start from scratch in creating this. Take it, massage it, make it work for you. This is my list. You don't have to copy it. This is how I keep my files. But you should be selling homes and working with buyers, not worrying about how am I going to remember everything. So I share that, and I just go through my little checklist, and really, if you do that, you don't really miss anything. So
yeah, that's great. It's so nice that you share with the other agents who are new, because, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's only going to help.
No, exactly. And their colleagues, and I see no harm. It's not like I have a secret that I need to hide or keep from them. So I just wish, when I had started, and actually I did have the luxury, because when I first started in real estate, I did work for another agent. So it's kind of her list, which I have massaged over the last 20 years. But, she had a list, and I thought, well, I have these things. Let's share the wealth here. So.
Oh, that's great. And that must have been a great experience working for someone when you first started out, someone who could kind of show you the ropes.
Yeah, I had a unique experience, because really my goal when I moved back to Seattle 20 years ago was to assume I was going to find something in higher ed or corporate training. And I had a very good friend whose mother was the principal broker for the Coldwell banker Bain office in Bellevue, and so she hired me as a staff person, knowing that I was going to leave, and then the doors just didn't open up. So then, I went to work for, and the person I worked with was one of either first or second in the company for production. She pretty much was a waterfront and high-end home specialist, and I was her title-wise a business manager, but I handled all of her transactions, and so I was learning all that paperwork and how to count the days of a contract and all of that, and then I was doing all of her marketing for her, which was completely different than the kind of marketing that we might do now, and she, has since changed jobs and firms, but still is a very high-producing agent, but really good experience to see what she did, and it still comes back to, connections and those sorts of things, but to just lay the groundwork was a luxury compared to just starting out cold, which most realtors do when they start.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't even imagine. That must have been a great experience. And so tell me, when you first started working for her, did you have your real estate license, or did you get it after?
Yeah. Well, not originally, but she required that I obtain it. I was pretty much a Monday through Friday employee. I covered for her when she was gone, but I did not have to work nights and weekends, but I had to be licensed in order to do an occasional broker's open or an open house, or even to just have a keypad access to get into the home to restock flyers and any of those kinds of things. So I was licensed with her, and then after I'd worked with her for 2.5 years, and decided to go on my own, I lived in Seattle and she was on the east side or in Bellevue, Washington. So I stayed with the same firm and then just moved to an office that was really close to where I lived at the time. And that's where I've been the whole time that I've been on my own. But it was a great experience to work with her and kind of ease into real estate. And I even tell clients I entered this industry by default. I mean, I used to make fun of realtors. I had no idea, and even when I was a staff person initially, they'd all come in stressed out and I'm waiting for this piece of paper and da-da-da-da. So I try not to be that kind of agent when I come into our staff people, because I'm like, really, people, your life is really this full of drama or whatever.
That's hilarious.
But now I understand it, because that does happen. So anyway.
And I know that because I did my research on you before this call, so I don't mean to embarrass you, but I know that you've been receiving awards every year since you entered the industry when you went on your own. So that's amazing. Plus, I'm going to brag about you for a moment. You have been named a 5-star real estate agent for many years, and that's based on recommendations from clients, right, and other industry professionals. And you're also, I want to talk about this, one of the top 10 Green Genius real estate agents. So what does that mean?
Well, that was done on that particular year. They've continued to do it, and it was an association that basically green build. You know, when you're building with a energy efficient or using recycled products or any of those kinds of things. I think the very first year, and it just happened to be a year where I had a number of sales related to green built, certification. There's, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, and all this definition. And I was just one of the top 10 that they named, and they've continued to do that. I only got it 1 year, but it was a year that it is a unique award that not everyone has gotten. And obviously, you can get a certification in that type of thing in real estate and really make that kind of a primary focus for you, which I have not done. It just happened to be that particular year where I did sell a lot of built green homes.
Oh, that's really cool.
And of course, new construction frequently is you are doing in that regard because people are wanting energy efficient and recycled products and being, conscious of our environment and stuff. So builders are incorporating those things into their construction, and the higher the 3, 4, and 5 means that many more things are green or energy efficient in the home or
That's
whatever.
Really neat. And I think you're right. Like more and more homes more and more buyers want that in homes as well. So we're probably going to see more of that in the future.
Exactly.
But I wanted to ask
we definitely will.
Now, this is really important to me because the name of this radio show is Real Estate Game Changers. So I don't just interview people who are successful in real estate, which they are, but also I think some of the stuff that you do to contribute to your community is absolutely amazing. So I want you to talk about the Elizabeth Gregory Home that you are on the board of directors for, because I think that's just such a beautiful thing.
Well, I thank you. Ironically, the organization started about 12 years ago, and one of my past clients was one of the first employees there. So there was 2 at the time, and now there's maybe 4 or 5, and then several part-time. But it's located near the University of Washington in Northeast Seattle, and it's the only facility that is providing a welcoming place for homeless and at-risk women, like that's not a downtown service. So we have one transitional home, but most of the services that are provided are for the women to meet immediate needs. They can get breakfast and lunch, clothing. It's a day shelter program, and they help with acquiring permanent housing and finding the resources for that, improving their life skills, and getting their food handler's permit or whatever it might take to get a sustainable income to break free from homelessness. And so I had been in another housing association that was related to a church that I went to for a number of years and had been very involved with that, but I had stepped back from that for a couple of years, and about a year ago in their newsletter, the executive director had just stated that they were looking for some people to maybe be on the board, and if you wanted to be an change agent or whatever. And I thought, Roger, you've been thinking about doing something. So it just kind of was like a calling that, you need to. And what I like about it is, I'm on the one hand, I'm putting people into housing, and at the other hand, I'm helping those who can't afford it, get into it, have problems with it. And it just kind of is a balance for me and a really a good way for me to be contributing to the community. And then we had a need for someone with a human resources background, and I had worked with a woman earlier this year who had relocated here, who was the director of HR for a company. So I asked her if she was ready to connect to the community, and so she has since joined the board, and she's a wonderful contribution. And so, they kind of got 2 board members out of the connection. So it's a really great organization that's doing some wonderful, wonderful things right now.
Oh, that's so great. Well, thank you so much for doing that for these women. And I imagine that you are so well connected. You probably know so many people that can help too. Like if they need, they need blankets or they need, extra, groceries or whatever for the kitchen. You're like, oh, I know this person or that person.
Yeah, in fact, I'm trying at the moment. I'm actually even sending out I communicate a lot with electronic email instead of printed materials, and I'm sending out to my sphere, past clients and friends and whatever, soliciting to try to get some stuff because they have a Women of Wow event where they give them sweaters and scarves and sweatshirts and stuff to collect some of the things that they need, and I'm putting a flyer also in my all the mailboxes of all the people in my office to kind of do a little drive for that. And I think when you have a personal commitment, to it and say, I'm involved with this, do you want to come along with me and be a part of it or contribute in such and such a way, then people are more prone to, want to contribute and help. So I'm in the middle of all of that right now, getting the word out for
that's great.
Getting stuff collected. So
good. And, sometimes all people need, like they're thinking, I want to get involved with something, but I don't know what. And then you put it in front of them and they go, that's it. Just like what happened with you. So you never know.
Exactly.
That's so great. And even if someone can if all they can do is donate 3 sweaters and a blanket, it's something, and it all adds up and it all helps.
Yep. That's what it's all about. So we'll see what my little call out generates.
Good. And for some people, it might not be now, but maybe it'll be in the spring, or maybe it'll be another time. You never know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So getting back to real estate, again, putting you on the spot, what would you say just comes to mind if somebody like me was to ask you, what are your guiding principles as a business person?
Well, it's kind of coming from a biblical sense. I would say that I treat others as I want them to treat, you treat others as you would want them to treat you. So, I am, very honest and, fair and totally ethical. I mean, I would just be devastated if somebody ever said that I was doing something that was not appropriate in the industry or whatever. You can't steer people or tell people whatever, but I can give them the tools to get the information to maybe know a neighborhood they don't know about or whatever. But I do take each one very personally, like, would I want to buy the house in this neighborhood? So I might, really say, like, you need to check out such and such, because if you can't park your car in the, you don't have a garage, will it be safe in a driveway here? Where I'm thinking, I sure wouldn't want to put my car outside, but I can't tell you that. So, but so here are the, places where you can go to see if there's car break-ins or whatever. So, and then another guiding principle would be, and we had talked about earlier about just my strong sense of communication, and that I work very hard to keep all parties involved. And also what we mentioned earlier, another one would be that I am very, very organized, and I try to make the process go as smooth and seamless as it can for everyone. But being ethical and treating people the way I would want to be treated, I think are really the things that I hold the most dear.
Yes, I think so too. Absolutely. Now, I was just thinking about something too, about you educating and inspiring people. Don't you have a YouTube channel?
I do. I think if you just type in Roger Morris Real Estate, I actually don't know off the top of the head what it is. But yeah, one of the very unique things that I do on my website is, and then we post them on YouTube, is I have made about 40 neighborhood videos. Most of them are under 2 minutes.
Oh, great. And
there's a format. It's very unique. I don't know of any agent doing this type of thing. Lots of folks, stand in front of a computer screen and talk, or they'll make a video where they're behind the camera. I actually go out with my very, very, very part-time assistant, so there always is 2 of us, and we literally are out in the neighborhood, and we talk about what kind of architecture and, the flavor of that neighborhood, and showcase a unique, a park or a unique feature in that location. So if someone was relocating to Seattle, they could go on the website and in an hour, less than an hour, watch a bunch of videos to get a sense of where these neighborhoods are located. And then below on the website are a ton of statistics about average prices in those neighborhoods, and where the neighborhood is located, and some stuff that I'm able to grab provided to us from the company. But that's the whole thing, is trying to let people know about neighborhoods.
Well, that's wonderful. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's so amazing that you did that. 40 videos? That's great.
40 neighborhood, and then we've made, well, this is not all, done in a year. This is a couple years project. This year I've been very bad about adding the ones I still need to get done, but
I know what that's like.
And because I was afraid at one point I was going to run out, we also do over on another point under Roger's I think it's called Roger's Reels, as in movie reels. There are a number of real estate topics, like if you had a dog, what does that mean if you bought a condo or dog parks, or if what's an inspections covered, and I interview an inspector I work with a lot, or what does it mean when you have a house sewer scope, and I interview my guy that does that service. So sometimes I've brought in my people, but yeah, there's a ton of information, and I do wish that more people would find it.
Okay, so tell me and our listeners, what is the website address where they can find these videos?
The best one is just On the Road with Roger, ROGER.com.
Okay,
On
perfect.
the Road with Roger. It's all one word.
Okay.
And all of that is there.
Okay, On the Road with Roger.com. That sounds perfect. Good. So we've sort of come to the end of our time together. So how else can people contact you? First, we want them to go to ontheroadwithroger.com and watch those videos, and then tell us how else they can get a hold of you.
Well, my local phone is 206-595-7700. I've had a great number. It just kind of rolls right off your tongue, 206-595-7700. And my email is my name and who I work for. So it's Roger Morris, last name Morris, at CB Bain, and Bain is BAIN.com. So CharlesBoy.AIN.com is my email.
Okay, perfect.
And then I'm on Facebook as just Roger Morris Real Estate.
On Facebook. Okay, perfect. We'll put these links on our show notes as well, so people can just click or quickly jot them down. So thank you very, very much for your time today.
Great.
It's been wonderful getting to know you a little bit better, and now I want to come to Seattle.
Well, do. It's an awesome place, although looks very winter today, but when you come on a nice day, you'll want to stay forever. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you very much, and all the best with everything.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This has been another episode of Real Estate Game Changers Radio with your host, Suzanne Doyle-Ingram. To hear all episodes featuring our hand-picked real estate game changers, visit us online at www.realestategamechangersradio.com.